Welcome to Session 4 of the 7x7 video series for understanding and applying the SFS. In this session, we will go a bit further in our conversation about scoring, but don't worry, the only hardware you'll need to follow along is the simple calculator you can find on your phone or other device. Let's jump in. So in our last session, we discussed coding responses for the SFS, so that the 5 answer options from strongly disagree to strongly agree can be converted to numbers from 1 to 5. The next step to scoring the SFS is to average those numbers by subscale. Why don't we try it now, together? In Section 4 of your resource book, you'll find another copy of the scale sheets labeled For Practice. Maybe you can take a few minutes and answer all of the questions. We usually ask people taking the SFS to leave some room for nuance. That is, allow themselves to answer according to their current level of commitment to the question, and not, for instance, how they feel that they should answer or how they would answer at a different time in their life. Of course, you can pause this video for a while you do that. Notice that under the left-hand side, you'll find the key to which questions in the mix belong to PMPV. Again, that's 1, 3, 4, 6, and 10. After converting your answer options for these questions to numeric form where strongly disagree is 1 and strongly agree is 5, average those answers together by adding them and dividing by 5. Just to be clear, we're converting our answers on questions 1, 3, 4, 6, and 10 to numbers, and then averaging those numbers together by adding them and dividing by 5. Congratulations. You've just calculated a metrical profile score for a spiritual trait in the military readiness domain. That is your baseline score for the pursuit of meaning, purpose, and values, or PMPV subscale. You can now do the same for questions 2, 5, 7, 8, and 9 on the left-hand side. The average of those answers will give you a baseline score for the service and sacrifice for the greater good subscale. And lastly, you can average your answers for the personal connection with God or a higher power, PCHP subscale, by adding the numbers and dividing by 7. Just so we're clear, you will not assign a number value to the atheist screener question in Block 11. The answer to this question will not be averaged with the rest. You should now have a 3-dimensional baseline profile for spiritual fitness. Not all of your respondents will have a 3-dimensional profile. We estimate that between 12 and 17% of your population will opt out of the PCHP subscale, although everyone should be encouraged to try to complete that subscale if they're at all willing, in order to build a good and normal distribution of scores for PCHP. In any case, because not all of your respondents will have a PCHP score, we don't recommend that you average the scores for the 3 subscales together when inputting them into a spreadsheet or data management system. Instead, you can record either 2 or 3 scores into each entry on a spreadsheet, depending on whether the respondent opted out of the PCHP. We'll wait until our next session to begin discussing all of the various ways that you can analyze and make use of these scores, both at the group and individual level. For now, we might at least broach the subject of determining higher and lower scores. Take a look at the next page in Section 4 of your resource book. On the left-hand side, you'll find a tall blue and gray column. This column contains mean, or average, scores from 1,696 persons who took the SFS, listed by percentile groups of 10. Why not take a minute and compare your scores against the field? To do this, simply compare your score for PCHP against the mean scores listed at the top section. Where do you fall? Did you perhaps score between 4.5 and 4.73, placing you between 60th and 70th percentile of takers? Are you a little higher than that? A little lower? Now take a look at your scores against the means for PMPV and SSGG. In general, we want to be careful about rigid cutoffs to label scores as high or low. Even more so, we want to avoid using these scores to label someone fit or unfit. After all, we're measuring commitments and beliefs along a continuum, and these are softer traits. They're much more subject to change than, for instance, personality scores. Nevertheless, we can discuss scores as higher and lower against a large percentile field. For instance, we recommend that anyone scoring lower than the 30th percentile on any one of the 3 core attributes might want to speak with a chaplain for a coaching session. During that session, the chaplain can gain some context about a person's spiritual life, at least in that particular dimension of spiritual fitness. Chaplains will likely have no difficulty in offering on-the-spot tips to help a service member enhance personal connection with God, or stay more regularly aligned with purpose, or strengthen commitments towards self-donation in relationships. This way of using the SFS is what we call bridging scores to individual coaching. Many chaplains now use the SFS during the check-in process, first allowing a newly arrived service member to answer the scale questions, and then scoring the scale right there in the moment. With practice, by the way, this can be done in a few seconds. That chaplain can then help the service member compare their scores against the percentile groupings to determine whether their scores could be seen as higher or lower against a significant field of respondents. Whatever arises in the conversation to follow, for instance, themes related to spiritual growth or spiritual maintenance, can provide a nice foundation for later opportunities in coaching, counseling, and advisement. The chaplain can then even suggest that the member take a photo of their scale sheets in order to revisit the results later, or even take the scale again in a year or so and have something for comparison. We'll talk later about how the chaplain might want to record those results also, him or herself, and to what end. That's all the time we have at the moment. In our next session, we'll begin to explore how the SFS can be used for group profiling. See you then.